guys, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for always liking, subscribing, commenting, all of that fun stuff. I'm so grateful for you and so grateful we get to take this journey together. This video is going to be really short and sweet. I know obviously there's a presidential election going on, or ended or not. I know there's, a lot of legal things happening, but I wanted to address something. The thing about systemic racism, the system in place is systemically racist. That's what systemic racism is. And so it doesn't matter who is president. We can't stop exposing and fighting towards ending systemic racism and systemic oppression. I know that either side, whichever way you voted for, you're going to be happy or you're going to be sad, or you're sad or you're happy, or whichever. But the reality is it doesn't matter who's in office. Systemic racism does still exist. There is no one person that contributed to it, and there will be no one person that ends it. I will say this. My job here is to specifically address racism. I'm going to make that very clear before people come in the comments and tell me that the news doesn't declare the president-elect. Look, I get that you're frustrated. I get that you're upset. I'm just speaking on the fact that this has literally happened in every single presidency. So it doesn't matter who the president is, right? Like I said before in previous videos, Kamala Harris, Mike Pence, during their debate, there was a debate on systemic racism where Mike Pence was telling her, or speaking and saying that it didn't exist, but yet he was saying how she contributed to the problem of systemic racism. He was mentioning her background as the top cop in California. And Kamala Harris also contributed to systemic racism, and her being a person of color did not take away from the fact that she was a contributor to it. So I follow both President Trump and former Vice President, President-elect Joe Biden. And Joe Biden put out his transition plan. And in his plan, he addresses systemic racism. And I do think that it is a start. Being someone like me who does talk a lot about race, I think the first step is to address it. There's nothing that supports that it doesn't exist, because we have literally decades of oppression. We have redlining. We obviously have slavery. We have the civil rights and segregation. We have things that were implemented into our systems where we do have the war on drugs, where I've talked about before, where the crack rock and cocaine the sentences were very different in them, and they were the same drug. But the only difference was that with the crack rock, it was found more in predominantly black communities, and with cocaine was more sophisticated. So it was found in these communities. So there is tons and tons and tons of history that supports systemic racism and that it is real. But my point is that there is no one person that directly contributes to systemic racism. There is no one person that will take away systemic racism. There is no one president that will take away or help systemic racism. There is not one. There's not one. Okay? There's just not. I pray that we don't become complacent with whoever is sworn in January. That we still fight against systemic oppression. And I know that sometimes we could say, okay, we got this guy out, or this guy in, or whomever, or this guy stayed there. And we think it's over, but it's not over. It's never been over. It's just been probably more covert. People just don't know about it, which is why I'm here. But systemic racism still exists, and it's going to take us still fighting, still educating, still sharing with people, still talking to people, still talking about it, still talking to our families, still having those hard and deep conversations with people. A lot of people, like I've said before, just don't know. They don't know. They think that it's just, black people complaining or people just complaining about these things. And here's the thing. My husband's parents are in their 70s. And my husband, he's one generation removed from knowing people that have lived through segregation, that lived through redlining. We're one generation removed from it. My kids are only 2 generations removed from grandparents that had to live during the civil rights movement. I mean, we're not that far from it. Sometimes we look at Martin Luther King Jr. and we just think of it being so far away. But John Lewis even. John Lewis died this year. These people were still alive that had to experience those things. And so I don't think it's going to take one specific person to undo everything that has happened. I don't think it's going to take, I know it's not going to take one person. I know it's not going to take just this thing. And I know that people in their minds are already like, now the election's over, the racism in America will magically disappear. And we can't let that happen. The reason why I think a lot of people are paying attention to it now is because we didn't let the conversation die. We didn't let it go away. We kept talking. We kept sharing our experiences, our parents' experiences, history that has happened. We kept sharing and having those conversations. And those conversations are not easy. I understand that. I completely understand that. But they have to happen. And for change to happen, I believe that in this case especially, it may not happen on a larger scale at first. It's going to take the conversations at the table. It's going to take the conversations over coffee. It's going to take the conversations over the phone. And it's going to take empathy. It's going to take just listening and not feeling like you have to defend everything. It's going to take just listening. Sometimes we get on the defense about stuff because sometimes we feel like it's attacking us. And there is no one person to blame. So in order to recognize and see those things, we do have to have an open mind, an open heart, and have empathy. And so, I don't think one president, whoever it is going to take away systemic racism. I do know that we have to continue fighting. We have to continue plowing those fields. We have to continue having those conversations with our friends and family members and really, really, really make sure that we are listening to care and that we are sharing with compassion and listening with empathy. I love you guys. Thank you so much for always tuning in. Thank you for liking, sharing, commenting, and subscribing. You're the best. I love you guys. See you next time. Bye.